Ευχαριστώ κύριε Πρόεδρε. Θα συνεχίσω στα αγγλικά. Οπότε, distinguished guests, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the trust to undertake some more, empirical initiatives to try to understand the issue of the gender pay gap in the legal profession in Cyprus. So this is basically a presentation which I prepared in collaboration with our chair, Christakis Mouskos, but also in the light of what the other presenters are going to share with us on the panel. And it is also the results of a survey that the Center of Excellence that was mentioned before, the Jean Monnet Center of Excellence, which is an EU-funded project on the role of European values, can bring to the discussion. So the survey, the questionnaire that you will discover today was actually prepared by a postdoctoral fellow at the Center of Excellence. Her name is on the slide, Dr. Alexandra Ubariu. Now, just I will go very quickly because our chair has already presented the various elements and the sections of the presentation. So I'm going to go straight to the mapping of existing resources, which I found very interesting, and I would like to thank particularly the Cyprus Bar Association, but also the Nicosia Bar Association for being proactive in this field. Ms. Georgia was here in particular. So existing data show us that there are concerns among young lawyers in Cyprus. So the data that is presented here comes from a survey which actually the president of Cyprus Bar Association, Professor Clearidis, has already mentioned in his speech, prepared by the University of Nicosia for the Young Legal Professionals Committee of the Cyprus Bar Association. You see the data sample is actually big, 400 participants, out of which 300 are women, unmarried, 300 unmarried participants, and most participants without children. So we're really looking into young legal professionals. But you see that if you go to table 2, the number of years of practice, they're actually there is an equal spread between 2 years of legal practice, 3 to 5 years, and 5 to 10 years of legal practice. What does this tell us specifically about gender pay gap, which is what we are interested in here? I'm not talking about the rest of the survey. The gender pay gap is actually pointed out here, having in mind the data that I gave you before. First of all, 90% of the participants get paid monthly. That's important to know. And if you check the numbers, the percentage column, you will see that the majority of young female lawyers, since the survey is majority of women, 32.5% of the young lawyers are paid between 1,000 and 1,500 euros per month, with only 22% above that threshold to 1,500, 2,000 euros range. And 21% are below that, from 800 euros to 999 euros. The acquisition of or the gaining of a postgraduate qualification does not seem to affect or to change the picture. And it seems that married lawyers, professionals, seem to be more highly paid, but that's probably because they are older and have more years of experience. I also wanted to do some qualitative analysis with you because, as I said, the Cyprus Bar Association and the local bar associations have been very active in promoting gender equality and creating cultural shift. Only last week in Nicosia, there was a very nice presentation by, actually a nice discussion. And you can find some of the statements made by our Minister of Justice and Public Order, but also by our Commissioner for Gender Equality, and by the president of the Nicosia Bar Association. And last year, under the chairmanship of Ms. Georgia Stefanou and Ms. Georgia Constantinou Panayotou, there was this very interesting webinar on EDI issues, equality, diversity, and inclusion, again, around the same topics of gender equality in Cyprus. And I would like to share with you a thematic analysis of this webinar. So, Georgia, this is dedicated to you and your colleagues. It was extremely interesting to listen to it. You can still view it on Facebook. And this is more or less the thematic analysis of the discussion that happened on that day. And if you look at the themes and the sub-themes, they are very informative, and they are confirmed by the CRoLEV survey that I'm going to present to you next. So, of course, lesser pay is on the list of manifestations of discrimination, as well as lack of equal opportunities, underrepresentation in leadership positions of women, incidents of sexual or moral harassment, or absence for the fulfillment of care responsibilities towards dependent being punished, in inverted commas. The usual justification or the perceived justification for such discriminations are that women are more likely to have care responsibilities and to be perceived as less efficient, less flexible, and less reliable. The effects, though, or the implications of such discrimination are very serious and grave for justice. First of all, the legal profession does not reflect societal makeup, of course, because women represent half of the society. Clients' needs may not be met. Lack of trust in justice. Legal profession regarded as undemocratic, and talent, hard work, and effectiveness can be squashed. There were pathways to reforms being discussed in that webinar, and again, we will discuss some of those in this webinar, in today's panel. A development of codes of practice, increased promotion and visibility of women professionals, education, we will come back to that, fair distribution of work, systematic measures intended to address discrimination at the national level, zero tolerance policies for sexual harassment, and so on. Now, let me present to you the CRoLEV survey that was actually conducted specifically for today, for the Women in Law conference. It's a small survey. It only ran for a couple of weeks. It was answered primarily, but not only, by women. There was no age or any other demographic, by the way, data in this survey. So all we know is whether a woman or a man was answering. That's all. All the rest, it's anonymous. There were 25 questions, a mixture of quantitative and qualitative data. There were single choice questions, but also long text answers questions, with a focus on long text answer questions to try to attract quality to the data. Of course, participants were free to skip questions. And the report of the full report of the survey will soon be available on the CRoLEV website. And potentially, if the Cyprus Bar Association or the Larnaca Bar Association would like to have a full presentation, we could do this. So one of the first questions that was asked, if not the first one, is, what do you know about the gender pay gap in your profession? So it's a perception question. And three main themes come out. Lack of openness, so we tend not to talk about it. Remuneration being the second main concern. And lack of advancement opportunities being the third concern. By the way, there are some slides in Greek circulating somewhere here if you want to check, more specifically. To the question, what do you think may be the reasons for the existence of the gender pay gap? There are quite a lot, but let's say that in terms of sub-themes, we have inequalities in the distribution of care provision and domestic duties, particularly the multiple roles of women, and the many more challenges that women face because of their societal role. Also, there is this perception that women are not considered as being necessarily career-oriented, which means that this creates more obstacles for women, not for men. Lack of opportunity was also singled out, and particularly that the gender pay gap seems to be a structural issue, which means that it's deeply rooted and is systemic. The patriarchal ideologies and sexism of society, of the Cyprus society, that tends to be male-governed societies, where the men are seen as the providers for their families and for societies. These are perceptions. They are not my perceptions. They are the perceptions from the survey. Also, hierarchy, that seems to be an important factor in the legal world, simply because most of the senior partners tend to be older men, and also the fact that a lot of law firms are family law firms. So you may tend to have in senior management and leadership more older men. Also, that women are asked to do the lower paid jobs, for example, to do the first appearances at court. And women feel that they are less likely to be able to negotiate their salaries. Also, areas of expertise, perhaps, could be one of the areas to look at. So, do you think all women in your profession are affected by the gender pay gap to the same extent? And the question is no. The answer is, the majority answer is no. So there are differences among the legal profession, particularly if you take it more widely. For example, the legal services of the Republic of Cyprus are certainly paid much more highly than legal professionals in the legal field. And why do you think some women are more likely to experience the effects of gender pay gap than other women then, since it's unequal? Well, marital status, social status, childcare could be an answer. Lack of confidence in negotiating working conditions that we spoke about before. Limited choices or limited opportunities to speak up. This is perhaps another area where the Cyprus Bar Association could do something, perhaps, to organize speaking up sessions now that we have a whistleblowing legislation in the Republic of Cyprus. Underlying characteristics, so your background, your origins, your living area, but also race, age could be factors. And there is light across the tunnel in terms of merit. So not every lawyer has the same abilities as a litigator, and some women do prove themselves as very skilled litigators, which I think we can all agree with. And firms wish to retain them, thus minimizing the pay gap. So that's good news. Why do you think some women are more likely to experience the effects of gender pay gap than others? We continue. Sorry. I changed the slide, but not on mine. So what do you think are the effects of the gender pay gap on those who experience it? And here the effects are quite serious. Absence of autonomy, powerlessness, and low self-esteem. For example, one participant spoke about the higher risk of poverty and social exclusion at an older age for female legal professionals. The potential loss of valuable talent has also been mentioned quite a few times, with the participants saying women in law tend to leave the profession of active practice before the courts, or work for fewer hours per day, therefore not receiving the opportunity to work on more serious cases. And a lot of women decide to become judges, abandon being a lawyer, decide to work as a civil servant. That was mentioned before. The feeling of injustice, resentment, anger, unfairness, and disappointment is growing among the legal profession, so this is something that we need to take into account. And the lack of motivation as well, which could translate into a lack of effectiveness, is also growing, with this feeling that I may leave the profession kind of feeling. Now, what do we do about it? Awareness of policies intended to address the gender pay gap in the legal profession at the organizational level, so the law firm level, at the professional body level, Cyprus Bar Association, at the national level, the legislative framework, and look at the results. Awareness of policies. Majority, there is no awareness or little awareness. 77% for organizational, 91% for professional body, and 74% for national level. But then when it comes to the question of how do you assess the effectiveness of extant policies intended to address the gender pay gap in the legal profession, results are better, more encouraging. At the organizational level in particular, you have a combination of somewhat effective and very effective, which is a majority. At the professional body level, you have a good outcome out of the three, which is between very effective, effective, and somewhat effective. And at the national level, it's more neutral. So what makes extant policies intended to address the gender pay gap in the legal profession ineffective? Well, I will just pick up a couple here because we're pressed by time, but since President Gladys is with us, there were comments about the lack of implementation by the supervising authority, so maybe we want to discuss this, and also the absence of state control. How could extant policies be improved? And here we have an interesting set of suggestions. Pay transparency is one suggestion, which you will find again in the recommendations and in the examples of best practices. Provide more job security, raise awareness, and deal with the wider societal issues. Of course, this is not something we can do within the legal world. Maternity leave, paternity leave, paid leave, childcare after 1 p.m. You know it. Also whether the Cyprus Bar Association could undertake some sort of responsibility to actually publish the details of pay by employees in the field. So what policy should be implemented to address the gender pay gap in the legal profession at either organizational, professional body, or national level? The first and foremost aspect is education. And education was mentioned everywhere, all over the place in the survey. So it's a matter of education and change in the culture, cultural shift. Webinars, seminars can take place in order to empower women and inform everyone. Have a more comprehensive understanding of the role of women also would help. Also the fighting against stereotypes, and the mandatory education of employers introducing the issue of gender pay parity. Other policies include inclusive organizational culture, so at the level of the law firm, to have, for example, an EDI policy. That would be a good start if it's not done yet. Reporting at the level of the supervisory body, the Cyprus Bar Association, putting in place accountability mechanisms, enforced salary transparency and gender pay gap reporting, which is something I will come back to, which is very important. Other policies, legislation on equal pay, that would strengthen the control of employers in the private sector and empower workers to enforce their right to equal pay, as well as legislation in the field of maternity and paternity leave or paid leave. So, as I said, there could be more information available if you want to, if you're interested, via the Jean Monnet Center of Excellence. Now, why is this very important particularly for the legal field? And here I only set out for the purposes of illustration, Article 2 of the Treaty on the European Union, which I'm sure will be picked up on later, which mentions equality, gender equality among the EU values. Okay, I'm almost done. Among the EU values. And also I wanted to refer to Lord Bingham and his 8 principles of the rule of law, just to say that the rule of law, democracy, and European values demand equality between men and women. Equality of pay for equal or equivalent work is fundamental to achieving gender equality. And beyond issues of direct and indirect discrimination, which were picked up by the previous speaker, stemming from unequal pay for equal work, the gender pay gap in the legal profession raises fundamental societal questions. What kind of justice do we want? What kind of justice can we offer? And how can justice be fair if tainted by unfairness in its administration? Women are essential in the upholding of the rule of law, values, and principles, since they represent nowadays the predominant servants of justice. And in a world of backsliding of the rule of law, women must play a crucial role at all stages of the administration of justice and determine fair and non-biased delimitations to the administration of justice. Now, you heard about the Law Society from the previous speaker. That was very interesting. And she actually picked up in her last slide the fact that the Law Society has introduced a mandatory gender pay gap reporting in 2017, which is based on legislation in the UK. So this is something that perhaps we can look into for Cyprus. In France, it's interesting to see how also they are doing it. Of course, I'm from France, so that's the reason why I chose France as a case study. There is an index of professional equality by law, but the National Bar Council has a gender commission which actually overviews or has the oversight of gender equality in the legal profession. And I just wanted to say that actually the first female president of the National Bar Council was appointed in 2018, but there are already in France over 130 female presidents of local bar associations. So it's something that is quite usual. So in terms of recommendations, and I finish with this, out of everything we said, I quite like this French example of, you know, the banner that explains the role of women in justice and in law. We could easily do something similar. It's a timeline from the beginning of the Bar Association up to today. But also I think we agree that what is necessary is to give visibility to the role of women in the legal profession and to the manifestations and consequences of the gender pay gap, combating stereotypes and enhance cultural shifts. Also provide a probably self-regulated professional standards, incorporating and building on basic legislation and reporting requirements. Provide recommendations to law firms on flexible working conditions, we have heard it already, and meaning and enhancement of equal pay and equivalent work. And facilitate access of female lawyers to more senior positions within law firms, but also within the Bar Association. Thank you very much.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ την κυρία Shaelou.